Today's episode is brought to you by the Twisted Fork. Eat, drink, and enjoy. Lenny Brooks Jr.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
We like to be formal here on the show. We call people by their full names.
Yeah, right on.
Hey, does anybody ever call you Leonard by chance?
Yeah, they do. They actually do call me Leonard.
When you were a kid, maybe you got like your mother would yell for you to come inside for dinner?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm one of 7 kids. So usually my mom would go through 2 brothers and a sister before she could actually.
So like in the count, like, I was last. So it'd be like, Joyce, Lynn, Eric, Kurt. And I'm like, I was the 4th guy.
Yeah. So I have 3 older sisters and 3 younger brothers.
Where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in Dyersburg, Tennessee. But I'm an Army brat. So I've moved my whole childhood. I moved every 2 years.
Was there one particular place that you lived in that was your favorite, or you really enjoyed it?
Well, since it was Army brat, I actually lived in Germany twice and 2 years at a clip.
You're fine. You can continue.
And I lived in Italy for 3 years, so that was probably the funnest place.
How old were you when you lived in Italy?
I was in middle school.
So were you like old enough to know that this food's really good and like I'm eating the best pizza I could probably get my hands on?
Yeah. We we were feral, so I would go. What they called on off bases would be the economy. So I, at 12 years old, I'd go on the economy and go to the pizzeria by myself or with my friends.
Sure.
Order a pitcher of beer.
Were you there long enough to learn to speak Italian?
Yeah. And it's been so long now that I never got fluent, but I got to where I could communicate with people on the street.
Sure.
And in school, we didn't have English. So in lieu of an English class, we had Italian. So that's. And the same thing when I was in Germany, we didn't take English, we took German.
Right.
And that was just
so all the Italian kids probably turned to you for English help.
Most of the kids that I went to school with were all Army brats.
Oh, okay.
Because we're on the military days.
Gotcha.
So a couple of teachers were Italian though. In fact, the first teacher ever called me Lenny was a teacher from.
Interesting.
There, yeah, it was an Italian guy from. Mr. Bonatti was his name. Yeah, and he's the first person ever called me Lenny.
Well, you are an amazing guitar player.
Oh, thank you.
I think you're one of the best in the area, but no doubt. And
I'm long in the tooth, man.
Well, you're with Twinkle and Rock Soul Radio.
That's
currently,
right. Yeah.
Okay? And Twinkle and Tony were on the show a few months ago. Love those two. I can't wait to get them back on because they're so good together.
Yeah.
And it turned into be like a little bit of a little comedy thing. We had talked about a lot about music though too, and Twinkle's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Before I forget, everybody who comes on the show gets a free jacked up T-shirt. So this is for you.
Oh, right on.
And the reason why it's bright yellow is because we don't want you to get hit when you're on your motorcycle or your bicycle.
That's cool.
Because we care about our fans.
All right. Thank you.
But a few words that I can say about you guys. So I had moved to Sarasota, and my bass guitar was sitting under my bed collecting dust. I didn't touch it for years because I did the whole corporate America thing. I mean, I was all over this. Lived in New York, Chicago, LA. I was a climber, money. Worked for CBS, worked for Fox, and I finally got to a point in my life where my life slowed down from that perspective, right? And my mind changed. So I come to see bands in Sarasota where my parents were living. And I caught you guys years ago. You were either doing one of Bill Kenny's festivals, perhaps.
Oh, maybe.
And you were playing with other bands like Kettle and The Verge.
Yeah,
Dr. Dave. And when I saw you guys hit the stage, man, I was amazed. I was in love with you guys. First of all, Twinkle's so mesmerizing and captivating, right? I mean, just watching her.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen or heard somebody like her before. And I think that's still, to this day, why you guys are so unique, is that she's got such a unique sounding voice. And she has such a unique presence on stage.
Yeah.
You can't take your eyes off of her.
Yeah, she's...
So we're going to talk about all that. But I just wanted to make the statement that there would be no Jacked Up if there wasn't for Twinkle and Rock Soul Radio, man,
right
because
on.
you
Well,
inspired me to take that bass out from out of my bed, take it out of the case, start playing again.
Well, that's great.
Get with a bunch of guys, and start putting a band together. And it took many, many years to get Jacked Up to where it is now.
Yeah,
and
you
then
guys
now it's been 7 years.
Yeah. Oh, so okay, 7 years since Jacked Up.
So Jacked Up's been together for 7 years, but
that's wow.
there were projects before that, where we were just basically playing Cream.
And you had a couple member changes too.
A lot of member changes. And that's another great testament for your band is that not only being a great classic rock band who plays a lot of different types of music. I mean, now you guys are doing Cars, which is cool.
Yeah.
You're not just doing like Janis Joplin. You're doing a whole lot of different things, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you about that. But, what's great about your band, I think, is that you're all very, very talented individuals and you've come together and you create a unique sound, man.
Yeah, I think the sum is, I think everybody's excellent at their job, but it's still, I guess they would say chemistry because the sum is greater than the parts. You know what I mean? So that everybody's good at their own thing, but something happens when we all get together that kind of
magic.
Yeah. So that chemistry, and that's hard to find in a band. And when you, sometimes if, there's things that take you away from it, like, life and you have a chemistry Benny is actually, even though he's been with us for 7 or 8 years now, he's actually the second drummer. We had a drummer initially, Troy, that was with us for a bunch of years.
I think I remember.
And he had to move to Ocala.
I think I remember seeing you with Troy.
Yeah.
Before you got Benny.
Yeah.
So that's where I come into this. But you and Tony have a history. Talk about that.
We were put together in a band. We auditioned for a company, and that put out 8 bands, and they put them together and they put them out on their own.
What year was this?
This was 1982. So I was right. I graduated in 1980. I auditioned to be for this company in 81, and I got the call to come to camp. They had a camp, and you come, and there's enough musicians there, 8 guitar players, 8 keyboard players, 8, and enough to make 8 bands.
That's pretty cool because maybe these guys back then were looking about making money, and they're like, we're going to create the next Poison or the next Van Halen or the next hot band, right?
Well, what we did is we did a lot of we played a lot of high schools, and we would do assembly program. And how they made their money is we would do assembly program for free. And sometimes the school had an auditorium, and there was 2,000 kids at the school. We'd have to do 3 shows to get through everybody. And in return, we would go back and they would provide us a couple of teachers and some students to help set up and tear down the gear. And they would give us the auditorium to do a night concert that we would sell tickets for. And
that's a nice little trade deal.
That was put together by the company. That was their what they did. And so we got hired as musicians to go do that.
So you're a great guitar player at a young age. You go to the audition, you make the cut. They put you in a band. Did they just say, "Here's your next best friend for life, Tony"?
No, what they did is, since there were like 8 of the 8 sets, they would go and they would take Polaroids of you, and then they have like big office meetings, and they would put together bands. This guy, he doesn't work over there. Oh yeah, he works there, and they try to make it, fairly diverse as far as how you looked, your race and stuff like that. They were,
plus your style of play. I mean, maybe you were a different player than the other guy, right? I mean, or were they all excellent players?
Most of them were pretty good to make the cut, because there was a lot of auditions, and because the audition, I saw a band come to my school, and they said, "Hey, if you guys are interested in doing this, fill out this card. You can submit a tape of yourself playing as an audition." Awesome. And so that it was it kind of like fed itself, by utilizing young talent that was all over the country. So these groups went everywhere. We went to Canada. We played in Halifax, all the way in Newfoundland, and we played Prince Edward Island, in Halifax, which is on the mainland, but all the Northeast. I went through there, and we went as far. We both were in the company for 3 years. So we would tour during the school year, and we'd have like a month and a half off in the summer. And then this last couple of weeks of summer, we would go back to camp. We get put in new bands and go out on the road again. So Tony and I were in my first and third band, I think, of the 3 years. So we were together 2 of the 3 years, and he was in a different band 1 year, and so was I. So, but each guy, we just got put back, but each guy, we had different keyboard players now, because like some guys only stayed 1 year. We stayed 3,
So was it the same set list more or less that everybody has to know all these songs?
A lot of them were.
Interchangeable stuff?
A lot of them were, but you got to pick some certain, you had some freedom, but it was stuff like you're going to play like Prince, you're going to play it because it was hot on the radio, and you want to be relatable to the kids that are listening.
So you're playing top 40 pop, good rock,
rock.
Maybe it was like Zeppelin and that stuff too.
No, it was, but now consider 82. So we were thinking about like Quiet Riot. Was Come On Feel the Noise.
Van Halen was hot.
Van Halen, absolutely, we did Van Halen, and the stuff that was kind of on the radio, Zeppelin was, they were AOR radio, but not really pop radio,
right?
But
not until the '84 album came out did they really make the radio.
Yeah, they did. They made top 40 radio. Van Halen though was pretty hot. They were, the first 3 albums.
I grew up a huge Van Halen fan. I got bit by the Van Halen bug in the 70s, man. Like somebody turned me on to the first album.
Yeah, me too.
And it just like changed my life, dude.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And I was really early listening to Rush too, like first album before Neil Peart was the
Don't
drummer.
you love the early Rush before they got into like the heavy synths? Not that against the synths.
Yeah,
it worked. But like those first 2 records, man.
Yeah.
That was like rock and roll, man.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that song. I Think I'm Going Bald.
Yeah.
And yeah. And even,
Working Man, I think Working Man was the one
Man.
that got them famous. For an example, there was a DJ, I want to say either in Cleveland or Detroit, that found out about that song before the rest of America did, and he played the crap out of it.
Yeah.
And I think when you listen to a Rush documentary, they talk about that, how that guy, because people were calling him, what was that song? What was that song? And back then it was cool because do you remember listening to the radio and you could actually call in a request?
Oh, yeah.
I remember those days.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And they'd have, the contest, for local tickets or something like that,
A friend of mine won a Blue Oyster Cult contest.
Yeah.
Which is funny because we actually had a chance to open up for those guys. And I got to meet Eric Bloom and Buck Dharma backstage. This was the Thunder concert.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And then I just found out, unfortunately, I'm booked on the 4th, but they're playing Tampa. Blue Oyster Cult's going to be up at the Hard Rock on July 4th.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
And the cool thing is they'll play a lot of their old stuff too. Like they'll play like the Die Hard Blue Oyster Cult stuff. Then they'll play their popular commercial stuff.
Yeah, they do.
But Eric Bloom is 80 and he's still going hard, man. Wow. He's rocking it.
Yeah. Well, there's no reason to not do it, right? So as long as you're healthy enough.
So my next question is this, because we're talking about early influences, like what makes Lenny Brooks the guitarist that he is today? Like what were you listening to as a kid? What were you noodling with on a guitar? What were you trying to learn as you progress in those early stages?
Well, I think the reason I even play guitar, because before I even played guitar, my sister had a boyfriend. And I was friends with his younger brother, and I heard him playing music through the door, and and he was really into Deep Purple, and like a bunch of these cool bands, and it was back with, remember Cream magazine?
Sure.
Yeah. So they had the glossies in there, and he would cut those, and they were all over his wall. I remember walking in and seeing Richie Blackmore. It's like, who is that? And I didn't know who these bands. Well, he was listening to Bridge of Sighs, Robin Trower. And I was, me and my friend were playing, and I stopped, and I was like, what is that?
It's mesmerizing.
Yeah, what is that?
Right.
Let's go talk to your brother, And he was like an older guy, bodybuilder, older. So he's really intimidating to skinny little, 6th, 7th grader. But I asked him, what is that? And he showed me, And it's like, Robin Trower, Bridge of Sighs. It was a cassette. And I was like, can I borrow it? Because he had this like nice sound system. And he was dating my sister anyway. So he's like, yeah, you could do it. So now I went home. Now my sound system was that little square cassette player.
We all had that, yeah.
Right.
We all had that.
And I wore that thing out, man. I just couldn't get enough of it. I found Robin Trower before I found Jimi Hendrix, before I found Jimmy Page. So I was, there was I had just got turned on to that. My mom started letting me buy a few records at the military store there, the commissary, and I bought Not Fragile, BTO, Not Fragile. I bought the Bridge of Sighs, Robin Trower, and what else did I buy? Another one of that sort of like, BTO is like really good, but kind of simple, riff rock, which I still love to this day. And that's the stuff that I would try to figure out.
Did you have a record player back then when you were living in that house?
I think I had, my dad had a really nice, the console. Remember the big consoles?
Right.
That was it was the TV.
Right.
And then this side you lift up and it's the record player and the record holder in it, but it looked like, it looks like the things you set your TVs on now, And so we had one of those, and my dad liked, all cowboy music. That's pretty much.
Do you remember 45s?
Oh yeah.
You had to put that little piece in the middle, and you put it on, and you play. Then you had to take the needle over here.
Yeah.
And sometimes the needle knew to come up and go over.
Yeah, when you switch it to 45, the right speed from 30. Well, my dad, his MOS in the service, his method of service was he was a club manager, and he was a quartermaster, so he managed the NCO club and the officers club on the bases that we lived.
That's a cool job to have.
Right, really cool. So what would happen is they would change out the jukebox, like with the new hits that come in. And my dad would actually come home with stacks of 45s. So I heard everything and had everything that was like...
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So
okay, so now you're at a point in your life where you're listening to all this wonderful music, and you had a guitar, I'm assuming, on your lap. Were you good about figuring out like what notes? Were you good about figuring out the chords? Like, were you self-taught?
Yeah, I was predominantly, initially I started getting into music, and then when I think it was in 6th or 7th grade was when I first had a chance to have an elective. Like most of your classes are already planned out for you when you go. Then you get a choice in middle school, and I took I was delaying taking a history class, so I signed up for a folk guitar class. And because of that, my dad ended up having to buy me a guitar for the class, which I believe he bought off the wall. It was a wall hanger in a bar that they call it
kind of like this.
Well, no, it was a classical. It was an acoustic nylon string guitar, and it was basically a decoration. I mean that the strings were this high off, but that's what I had, and so that's what I learned. Then what really sunk me is. This is 1976, so there's a lot of residue.
So much good music came out in 76.
Oh yeah.
It's insane.
Frampton Comes Alive. I was
just thinking that.
That was probably the second trip that I took to the music store. Like my initial trip was the Bachman Turner Overdrive and the Bridge of Sighs. The second trip I went to the music store.
Everybody that I know growing up, and everybody that I've interviewed about this, everybody had Frampton Comes Alive.
Oh yeah.
And at one point, it was the #1 selling double live album of all time.
Yeah.
Because it was like it was such a great album. To this day, it's still relevant.
Oh yeah,
man.
Absolutely, yeah. So I have this folk guitar class. I'm learning the finger pick, which is cool. But we're playing "Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley." Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. It's really folk music. The Bob Dylan and Kingston Trio, "Lay Lady Lay." These songs, and some and on the military base, especially overseas. Things were delayed. The movies you got were 2 years old, even the ones in the theater. You know what I mean? There's no real new releases. So a lot of the kids were still like really heavily like hippies, kind of in the hippie vein because everything is delayed getting there.
I believe that.
And so some girl in the class, some hippie girl in the folk guitar class, taught me how to play "Stairway to Heaven." That was
like the intro.
Yeah. Yep. The intro to Stairway to Heaven, and that was on the radio, and so I could actually play a song.
So like, how stoked were you when you like learned how to play that? Were you like,
that was
the greatest thing that ever happened to you?
That was it. That was it. I was in it.
In this show, I always try to, the guy sitting in your chair, I always try to find that aha moment. Like, I'll always ask a question. It's like, at what point did it just like come to you, man? Like it was in your blood. Like you just got bit by a vampire and you're now possessed for life on rock and roll.
Yeah. So the Robin Trower, the sound of Bridge of Sighs was like, I want to do that, whatever that is. And learning the intro to Stairway to Heaven was the moment where I go, hey, I could actually do this. I could do that. And now the rest of my development probably mostly had to do with the fact that we moved every 2 years. So I was, everybody on military bases, the kids are constantly the new kid in school. But so you either, become really agreeable and make friends fast, or you are a little bit more introverted. I'm the middle kid, so I was a little bit introverted. But now I had a guitar. So I used to live with my guitar around my neck.
So did people come to you because they liked hearing you play, and perhaps maybe you got into a band that much faster? Because I know that for a fact in my high school, the kids that like demonstrated that they could play, they quickly put bands together.
Yeah. Yeah, we were, I had friends that played, a couple of friends that we were all kind of like striving guitar players. And we kind of like sort of started to put together some stuff. There was three of us mainly in my school that were like kind of friends that hung out and played guitar. And one of my friends in particular, we would, when we were growing up, we would like the new Aerosmith records coming out on Friday. We would both get it. And, I might start learning side B and he might start learning side A. And then I'd go sleep over at his house on the weekend and we'd show each other like, this is how I think this goes. And,
That's cool, man.
Yeah. So.
And then eventually one of you guys had to become a bass player because they're like, there's always that guy goes, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah. I never really had a band, but one of those guys was a pretty good singer. And we did the talent show, the school talent show. And it's pretty hysterical. So we did some Van Halen, for the talent show. And I don't even remember if we won, but we did pretty good. And I had my picture was in the school newspaper.
Oh, that's great.
That's
the start of something special.
Yeah. So it's, it was pretty, you look back and it's kind of
that was a catalyst maybe. Because you know what? You probably also got bit by the live bug, like the live bug in the sense that like when you play in front of people, and you're good and people enjoy that, it's very hard not to do that anymore. It's like an adrenaline. Like, I like to be live now, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I want to be in front of people.
I mean, that was the first time that, here I am in 9th or 10th grade, and it's the first time someone actually asked me for my autograph.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're in my biology
class. They're clapping for you, right?
Yeah, like, I sit right behind you.
So, everybody should enjoy that type of feeling. It's a wonderful feeling.
It's cool. And it definitely helps. It definitely helps motivate you to, because learning a musical instrument, for me, I'm the only musician in my family, and it didn't really come easy to me, and still doesn't, it's something that I have to really work at.
Because what's funny, just when you think you're getting good and you're comfortable, then you start realizing, I don't know shit.
Yeah, and that's a never-ending cycle.
I know. It frustrates me because I'll go see a band, and I'll hear this bass player, and I'll watch him, and I'll hear his tone, and I'm like, holy shit. I need to either quit playing or go back and practice now.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. So, so it helps you get through some of that stuff. But being perpetually the new kid probably did the most because I didn't have to go beat the streets and look for someone to hang out with.
So let's fast forward a little bit. Tell me about your very first gigging band.
So I think the very first time that I was gigging, that wasn't like just a talent school show, was when I was only 19 when I went on the road with that band from the company. So I graduated high school. I wasn't gigging. There wasn't really any place to play where I was at the time.
Then there wasn't a Craigslist. There wasn't like some kind of document, like a newspaper where you could find other musicians, right?
No, there wasn't anything like that. There was there was one music store in town. Some of us would hang out. You had to know them in school. And then you know. And then I grew up I went to high school in North Carolina, and that was the impetus of me jumping off and going into this company that put together the bands. And so I was there. I had graduated in 1980, and I sent my audition in 81 and was going to community college taking music, and I could see the dead end. I was like, oh man, I'm going to be teaching 8th grade band. You know what I mean? If I do this music degree. And then I was in a band with one of the three, the three of us, the three amigos. I was just moved into his house, and we were starting a band right then. And then I got my call for the audition, and I was like, man, I got to go. This is cool. They're going to put me in a band. I'm going to go right on the road. And so that's what I did when I was 19, and I got put on the road. And in those 3 years, we did 3 to 5 shows a day. So I told you we did high school assemblies. We might do 4 of those, and then one night show. So I played so much in those 3 years. I mean, each year was probably worth, and they even said it was probably worth about 5 years in the club.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Think about this. Repetition, right? Muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're playing these songs over and over and over again, so you're getting really good at it.
Yeah.
You know
And then you have a new crowd, a new city, you know. So we would do 3 to 5 shows a day, one show on Saturday, just the night show on Saturday, and Sunday we would move to a new area. And we had 2 booking agents in front of us booking shows. Like it took 2 to fill up.
So you got involved in the entertainment business at a young age, and you had steady work.
Yeah.
I mean, you had a paycheck.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's talk about how you got involved with Twinkle and Rock Soul Radio. Talk about how I'm assuming you came to Sarasota, or were you like summoned to come to Sarasota?
Well, Tony and I both were living in the Northeast. We were in New Jersey, but we had a band. After we got off the road with that company, Young American Showcase, we decided we wanted to do our original music and wanted to see if we can get a record deal.
Okay, so before we continue, original music. So you and him were writing together.
I probably started writing music when I knew 3 chords.
Okay.
So I always have written music and always had that side of me. You know, I'm sure a lot of it wasn't good, especially when I only knew 3 chords.
But you probably had that notebook you walked around with, right? With all these wonderful ideas, right?
You know, most of it was like I would play something that I liked that I didn't think existed. You know, it wasn't like I came up with a song that was like, oh, this is that. You know what I mean? You know, it's not like I came up with the intro to Stairway to Heaven and go, look what I wrote. Oh, I didn't write that. You know what I mean? So I was just writing and noodling and finding little, chords and stuff and versions and sounds on an instrument that wasn't there before. And I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool. And so I always had fun doing that. And so when I knew that was going to eventually be the plan someday, that I wanted to pursue that. So once we decided that we had had enough of the road thing, because it was so busy, it was one thing. You're gonna learn a lot about that, but you're not gonna learn about writing. You're not gonna have time to write your own material.
Right. But at this point in your life, it was very necessary for you to go through that.
Yeah. So now this is what I wanted to do now. So when we got off the road, we decided that we were going to either try New York or LA. And my parents, while I was on the road, had moved to New Jersey. My dad got a job on a military base there, even though he had retired. And he got a job on a military base in New Jersey. And so I was like, hey, man, I know where we can get a meal if, things get, tough. If we go to New Jersey and try to crack New York, my mom is going to feed us, and so that's the whole reason.
So at this point, it was you and Tony. Was there a drummer involved at this point?
Yeah, a drummer that was also in that company. So
it was a 3-piece you guys had?
Yep, we had a 3-piece. We were called August Shock.
And who sang on the 3-piece?
Tony was the primary singer. And, we all tried to pitch in. The drummer sang a little bit, but Tony was a primary singer.
So what was the name of this again, this one?
August Shock.
August Shock.
Yep.
Interesting.
Blasting Rock is what. And that's how our drummer came up with that name and the logo. I mean, we had T-shirts and everything.
Yeah. Did you create an album?
We just had demos, mostly demos, but we got to be pretty popular. We ended up having a regular night at, we had there was a club in New Jersey called Close Encounters. We had our night there. Some other bands that had a night. There were bands like Guitarist, which Zach Wild was in at the time. So before he made the Ozzy audition, bands like Edgar Casey and Prophet and TT Quick. So were all our peers in that area. Although we looked way up to them, they were.
Did you ever hear of Rat Race Choir out of Westchester?
Oh
yeah, because I'm from Westchester, and that was our band back then.
Oh yeah. I've heard of that. Yeah, absolutely.
So now you guys are rocking it out, and you're having a fun time.
Yeah, right.
Did you ever play Lemoore?
So many times. We opened for Zebra, just at Lemoore.
Zebra, they were big back then. Dude.
7 times.
They were big.
We have the record of unsigned band, the highest attendance.
Now, why do you suppose that you were so good but yet unsigned?
Well, so what happened is that it was like in the middle of the breakout, there would be a band that would break out, right? And so let's just say Rat. So you'd have a Rat, and then every record label wanted their own Rat. You know what I mean? So they would.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. So there was a shit ton of competition. You know what I mean?
Definitely was.
Yeah, there was just so many bands, and and you had to be pretty lucky. You had to be good, but pretty lucky because a lot of
timing, everything, dude.
Yeah, they were weeding through. It wasn't like we were the only ones that didn't get a record deal. It was like no one was getting a deal because they had so many bands that were like no, and a lot of time you couldn't even get in to see them.
Plus, it might have been like the fact that you were in New York versus being like in LA at that time, because I think there was already a winning formula. Like I think the Motley Crue and all those cats on Sunset.
Yeah.
Maybe there was a better chance of making it out there at that time because they were looking for a certain kind of look and sound.
Yeah, it could have been. And that look was everywhere. That look was in Boston. There's bands that looked just like that. LA, there was a ton of bands.
So was it a glam look?
It was sort of a glammy look.
You guys
look,
glammed it up a little bit?
Yeah, glammed.
And your clothing as well?
Yeah.
The hair.
Big hair, guy liner, the whole bit, and yeah, it was it was pretty much that. And so it was, then it became sort of homogenized that look. And then it almost became a parody of itself,
Well, before it became a parody, it was hot because women were going crazy over this stuff. And the big money thing was the record sales and probably the concert venues. Yeah. There was no internet at the time.
Yeah, right.
Right? There's no downloads.
Yeah.
So they probably figured, hey, I need to find a band. If I was a marketing guy, I'd go out there and say, I want to find a band where I can make a lot of money with.
Yeah.
These are guys that are going to bring the women in. They're going to bring in the guys. We're going to start selling out. We're going to move our way up. Eventually, we'll be in the garden.
They write songs with hooks,
Yeah. Or wouldn't the record company also maybe give you a guy? It's just, this guy's going to help you write some songs?
Yeah, like your Desmond Child or, one of those guys that are, professional songwriters. It's sort of like how Nashville is.
HBO had a show called Vinyl. It was only 1 year. Did you see it?
I'm trying to think. I don't.
It was produced by Mick Jagger, and Scorsese was involved, and it was a really good thing. I'll tell you really quickly what it was about. A record company that was doing all like the Christmas specials and all these kind of like not really rock and roll. They ventured into the rock world through punk rock, and it talks about the New York Dolls, and it talks about how they became famous. And there's this one scene where there was this guy living up in Harlem, and he was a black man, and he was a guy that came from the South, but he was living up in Harlem now, and he knew how to write music. So the record company hired him and made him sit with these young British guys that didn't know shit about shit. They just looked good and they jumped around, and he taught him basically 1-4-5 shit and basic stuff. And he wrote hits for this band, and the band became famous.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of those bands, especially bands from England, they seem to have really captured a love for American music, and they basically taught it back to us.
You know what they say about that? Interesting. So there was some racism going on in the United States, especially in the South. The British guys were coming into America. They were going down south, and they were going through the garbage cans and pulling out records that these fathers were throwing out because they didn't want their daughters listening to this stuff, like black stuff.
Race music is what they call it.
Maybe Elvis was too sexy back
then.
Yeah. So they were just basically taking this stuff, and then they would run back and they regurgitate it back to us. So like you said.
Yeah.
Because if you look at early Stones, early Zeppelin, it's just American blues, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And we could care less about it until they taught it back to us.
Do you think that you're a blues guy at heart? Like, you have a strong blues basic methodology to when you play and when you write?
I think so. You know, I think so. I think mostly, I think that I write very lyrically, like not specific lyrics, but the stuff that I write, you could absolutely hear melody lines in it.
Are you trying to strike gold and going right for the hooks? Like when you start sitting down, you try to create a hook, knowing that that's a shortcut to the.
Honestly, what I like to do is just write music that I like. You know what I mean? If I like it, some of it may not be so hooky that we may not. It may not end up being a song, but I write stuff. The stuff I
You have a collection of hooks. That could be the name of your album. Collection of hooks.
Yeah, I really do. It's like, and every time when I'm playing, like I'm warming up at a gig, and I'm playing something, I find a little ditty, and Twink's there recording it.
That's where I want to go with this conversation, because now I want to bring in Twinkle into this whole equation, because a lot of people know Twinkle's story, and we're not going to really talk about it on this show, but she is just an incredible performer.
Yeah.
Right. So now you're in her band, right?
Yeah.
So talk about how that happened, and then talk about your involvement with her in the songwriting.
Okay, so we're up there. We're trying to get a record deal we're there for 15 years now at this point. So me and Tony have been roommates. Then we had girlfriends, and he moved in and got with his girlfriend and got married. And I moved in with my girlfriend and got thrown out and moved back home to my mom's house, and was, living in the basement. Tony was adopted. He went to some group therapy with a bunch of other adoptees, and he found out some tricks of the trade to find his mom. And it was really something that inside he was just driven to do. And when he found his mom, he lives in Bradenton. And so he found his mom, he came down and saw her, found out his dad. His dad lived in Sarasota. So we got all these people here. His dad was getting remarried. And so we all came down as a band to play at his wedding. And we played at his wedding. And then we went back up. And then we were working. And me and Tony weren't playing together anymore. He was in a different band. And I was playing with a different band. It was just happened a few times in our 42-year-old friendship, where we were doing other things. And then one day he's like, his brother came up for his wedding and never left. And so we put together a band for him because he's a singer. And this is Twinkle's brother too, right? So he came up and we put together, he was sort of a country singer. So I was like, I don't know how to play country music, but I'll learn it. So I got a list of songs that he wanted to learn. It was one of the last times where you could do the Columbia record. Remember, you buy 11 records for a penny?
That was a great deal.
Yeah. So I got all these country records and started learning these licks for him, and learning these songs like Friends in Low Places and all this stuff. So it didn't take very long for that to morph into a Southern rock, because we were rockers. We couldn't really commit to the true country thing. So it ended up being, where we were playing Allman Brothers and all this stuff. Tony finds his parents, finds out his dad's good friend with the Allman Brothers. We get backstage at Radio City. We get backstage at
So how cool was it for Tony that, he was a musician, to find out that he's got these connections?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then we haven't even talked about his sister, because when was the first time you met Twinkle?
When we came down for his dad's wedding. Yeah.
And she was already an established singer, right?
Yeah, she already had her record out. In fact, I had a cassette of it. And
so did you have a cassette of it before you even met her?
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, hey, could you sign my cassette?
Well, what had happened was there was a song on it that we were supposed to do on at the wedding. So there was a song that we were trying to learn, so that when we went down there, maybe she would rehearse with us, and we could do the song at the wedding, one of her songs. But she never came by. She was just so in and out that she never, we tried to set up a rehearsal a few times, and it never really happened. And then so we didn't do it. We did some of our tunes or something, or some cover tunes, but it was nice because Tony was the new guy in the family, everyone's adults, but
it must have been very exciting for him.
Yeah.
Because not only did he find them, but then he was accepted and loved. And
yeah.
And it was like a wonderful story. Like it's a great ending.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in New Jersey one winter after the fourth nor'easter, and
I think I remember that nor'easter.
Yeah.
I was living in the New York area, so I remember.
yeah.
all
So
this.
this is like late '90s.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Do you want to move to Florida?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" I was digging my car out at 2:00 in the morning to go to work.
Hate that shit.
And to go in and take a shower. And the last straw was that I dug out, went in to take a shower, getting ready to drive an hour south to Belmar, no, Fort Monmouth, Jersey Shore
Sure, I
to
know.
go to work.
Yeah.
And the snowplow came and plowed me back. I'm dressed for work, and all of a sudden I'm totally plowed right
that's
back
so
in.
funny.
I was like, "Oh, I got to get out of here." So yeah, so he said, "Do you want to move down?" I was like, "Yeah, I need 2 months, and then I'm vested in my job, and so I get all my retirement that they were paying in, contributing along with me, and I needed 2 months to be vested to get the money, and then I did that." And I told my doctor, that I was leaving because my allergies were so bad that I had to get out of New Jersey. And I had pretty bad allergy season. So he signed a note, which got me unemployment. Well, I didn't know it, but lo and behold, because I had a doctor's note that I had to leave. So I got unemployment. So I was down here collecting unemployment. We moved down here pretty much as a band with his brother. And we had that band. It was Dyersburg for down here for 10 years. So we moved down with a band. A couple of guys moved back. A drummer moved back almost immediately. Keyboard player moved back. And so we got our old drummer that was in August Shock. The same guy that was in August Shock. He had left August Shock and came back. He's from West Palm, Dean Demetrio. He came over and we had this band and we went on. And then he left again, and then we got Tom Hack, a new drummer, and I think he was with us for 7 of the 10 years that the band.
What was the band called then?
Dyersburg.
And then when did it become Twinkle and Rock Soul Radio?
So that was a different band. How the whole Twinkle thing came up is, start with the Giselle. That's Twinkle's name, but that's her brother's name as well. He decided he was going to quit singing and go into contracting. So we got our old singer from August Shock became the popular band that we had in New York was called Big Bad Wolf. And so me and Tony, we found another drummer and who was also in this company. And we have found a local singer, Joe Bravo, who's really a great performer too. It was almost like he was in this company because we were trained to be entertainers. And it was almost like he was from there. So he was great. So we had this really popular band called Big Bad Wolf. And that's the one that had the attendance record at Lemoore. And so after that, we got this band that was Southern Rock Band for Giselle. And then we moved down here with that band. And that band, we were just trying to think of a Southern Rock name. And I just said Dyersburg because I was born in Dyersburg, Tennessee. I said, Dyersburg sounds pretty Southern, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that sounds pretty good." And so that's how we got the name. It wasn't like it was because I was the boss of the band or anything. I was just a guitar player, but it sounded and it hit because when we got down here, we were playing Southern rock. People had already stopped playing Southern rock down here. It was like it had went through its phase. And so they're playing blues hard, and so everybody was playing blues. So when we got here, we were like the breath of fresh air. So we got here, and within 2 months, we were playing 4 or 5 nights a week, And in fact, we went into the clubhouse, open mic night, Sunday, when we got up to play. Chris Anderson band was playing, so it was Chris Anderson, Mike Koch, Bruce Wabel playing bass, Gary Gazzarda playing drums. So heavy hitters. And the club owner comes up to me and goes, "Hey, what are you guys doing Thursday night?" I said, "We're playing here." And he was like, he started smiling. He goes, "All right, what are you doing Saturday?" I said, "We're playing here," And this was a Sunday. And he goes, "How about Sunday?" And I said, "We're playing here." And he goes, "Good, because this is our last night." And so he wanted to stop doing the open mic, and he stopped, and we we were playing 4 or 5 nights a week. Start branching out to other places around. That's back when you could do. Even here, there was a bit of a scene like that. You know, it's of course it's not really that way anymore. Not for full bands. You know, you can't. You're not gonna.
Tell us about your when you're on stage with Twinkle. What is it like? I mean, what's your interaction with her? You know, or do you sometimes get giddy when you guys sound great and you're playing well, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, this song's coming across really, really good.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, a lot of it.
That chemistry you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's the, you know when it's going well because you're getting back the energy from the audience.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, some of the best nights we've had were things where it doesn't even necessarily have to feel like I'm performing so well today. You could feel like, God, I'm just not quite in step today. But the energy back from the audience is like overwhelming.
Yeah,
it's like they're going nuts.
Right?
You know,
certain venues are better than others, and certainly the festivals. I know you're on the seafood circuit as well.
Yeah.
As us. But when you guys are performing, does Twinkle basically make the set list, or is there a game plan? And then maybe you have to go home and do your homework. You're supposed to say, hey, we want to learn these songs, so you have to go learn them. Or are you coming to the table and saying, look, I already know these songs. You want to play these? Yeah,
a lot of times it's like, and before we had a keyboard player, and same thing with Dyersburg too. It would be like, I want to learn this song. I was like, okay, it's got a fiddle part, a piano part, and a guitar part. I'd have to learn all 3 parts. Like I'd have to learn everybody. I was kind of the utility guy,
the musical director per se,
but on guitar. So I was like, you know, there's a harmonica solo. Okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it on guitar. Right. You know what I mean? So I wasn't really what I would consider musical director. I didn't make all the decisions like that, and still don't. We just typically Twink does make the set list. She does, suggest songs. Everybody suggests songs that they think will go over. And
do you rehearse on a regular basis or as needed?
It's as needed, and even less than as needed. I mean, I think we need more.
Well, because you guys are so established,
yeah,
and you guys probably have a couple hundred songs that get down. You know, you're probably at a point in your life where like you know things like the back of your hand, and you could pull off an A+ job on stage, but with an older song.
Yeah, but also with age comes the ability to forget a song. Yes. And not even a song, a bridge, and and the wheels come off.
That happens to me once in a while.
Yeah, the wheels come off when it happens.
That's embarrassing.
You know? So I don't like if the song has not been in rotation, for 6 months, and we're gonna go, hey, let's play that song. I want a heads up before the gig, not even at the gig, so I could listen to it and go. Because
Dana Lawrence of Kettle was in the chair they're sitting in not too long ago, and he's like, look, he goes, I work the crowd, and I look at who I got behind me. And I just call out songs. Yeah. And 99% of the time it works.
Yeah.
You know, because he'll call out something that's not crazy, but yet he's got Chris Girton who, knows everything about everything. So he had the right guys with him.
Yeah. Now Chris was MD on the cruise ship. So and
it's funny because he's now in 22N.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I saw that.
He's a great guy.
Oh, yeah, he's an excellent guy.
You know what's great, and you know a lot of people in this marketplace. There's a lot of really good people, a lot of really good musicians, a lot of really good bands. Everybody seems to get along. Everybody supports everybody. You don't really hear much about like bullshit. I mean, the only bullshit you hear is like, well, this venue doesn't pay well, or maybe like this venue's gone out of business. But other than that, everything's positive, everything's upbeat.
Well, right? Yeah, I don't know how it happened because there's not really a lot of cutthroat, and I think a lot of it is because the bands are also diverse. You know what I mean? There's very few bands that, they might share a song or two in their set list, but a lot of them they don't share a lot of the same songs. Right. Kettle's got their whole vibe going. And we have our thing going, and you guys got your thing going too. And I can go see your show, and I'll hear less than 5 songs that you do that we do.
Sure,
you know what I mean? Less usually, probably 3, you know, and the reason that those are there is because of demand. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like
no, there's
audience.
songs, yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
the audiences
we
want.
we do 2 Prince songs, and everybody wants to hear them because we do them well, and certain stuff. And then you always got those filler songs like the Tom Petty fillers.
Yeah,
like the ones that, you want to take it off the set list, but it's just so easy to leave it on there.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I mean, and you know what happens too with us is that we end up with a thing in the song. So like we haven't done it actually in quite a few months, but American Girl was our, one of our 3 Petty songs that we would do, but that was typically our night closer. We'd end our show with that all the time. And so in that song, it's got a thing like, there's like the solo. I play the solo without picking and hold the guitar up. You know what I mean? I do that the whole solo. So it's got like a section that's that now that's a thing. So it's like, well, even if I didn't want to do it, do we want that thing?
No, you guys are known for that.
Yeah.
Like Give Me Shelter, you guys do something with that song.
Right.
I know that a big song of yours is 30 Days in a Hole.
Right.
You're the only band doing that song.
Yeah.
And that's a great song. That's Humble Pie, right?
Yeah. Steve Marriott. Yeah. Humble Pie. Yeah. And it's a good. It's
so
a
like there's certain songs you guys are known for.
Yeah.
I mean, I made fun of her when she was here about that she does. She'd mix her own lyrics on that Jimi Hendrix Butterflies and Zebras.
Yeah.
Bees, fairy tales. She doesn't she makes up her own lyrics.
Yeah.
What's the name of that song again? Little Wing.
Little Wing. Yes.
God, I can't believe I didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's what makes you guys unique. Like, you know what? If someone said to you, how would you describe Twinkle and Rock Soul Radio? What if someone said to you, hey, man, what kind of music do you play? Like, how would you, if you had to put yourself in a box, per se, how would you describe the band?
Man, I think we're kind of like a 70s rock and roll band at heart. And although it's so weird because Tony is a heavily 80s guy.
But you sound like a 90s guy sometimes when you do your leads. You got a 90 vibe going.
Oh, yeah? You think so?
Like an LA Sunset Strip vibe. I feel it sometimes.
Yeah.
Because the first thing I said when I saw you, this is God's honest truth. I said, who is this guy? Why isn't he living in Los Angeles in a mansion making $1 million a year?
Oh.
Because you were doing all the money leads, dude.
Yeah.
Like you're well trained in that, getting that sound and that groove.
Yeah.
And I could see Twinkle's a 70, 60, 70 kind of feel.
Yeah.
And Tony is so you're right. So the 3 of you are bringing this mash.
Yeah. And Benny, the drummer, is definitely, a 90s kind of, and
he even looks like a 90s dude.
Yeah, he's a little bit younger, than
Tell us about the new keyboard player, because that adds a whole new dimension.
Yeah, he's more like say if I was 70s and so's Twink and Tony's 80s, Benny's 90s, then Mick is vaudeville.
Vaudeville?
I'm just kidding.
That's like, I'm thinking David Lee Roth now. Because David Lee Roth he turned into vaudeville.
Just kidding, Mick.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, he's definitely sort of like a 70s, but he was in Bon Jovi before it was Bon Jovi. He's played with Southside Johnny. He's done a lot of his own band. I think it was Bystander. He was in that.
It just opens up a lot of doors, man.
Yeah.
Because you know what? You guys do 70s. You all do 70s, 80s, and 90s well.
Yeah.
So you can all do it. Like you said, you're 70s too. But what I noticed with him was Cars. I never would have thought I would have heard Twinkle and Rock Soul Radio do a Cars cover.
Yeah.
And it came out really good.
Yeah. That's really kind of like right in his wheelhouse. And I love Elliot Easton. You know what I mean? It's like he's a guitar player's guitar player. We all love him. How he throws those country licks in and it's still rock and roll, and it's so, I think most guitar players just think he's great.
So last time Twinkle was here, we went through the new record, The Freaks and Weirdos.
Uh-huh.
And we went through song by track, and I would name the track and she would tell me a little story behind it. So how heavily involved were you in that whole production?
A lot of it is my music. And so it's a lot of times it starts with me. So I write something, she records it, she likes it, and then it develops into a song. So there's some of that on there. So I think Tony has a song on there.
There's some great cuts on there.
Ballad of Buddy
and there's
Yoakum
definitely some hooks in there. Some of those
started as a Tony riff, and then I feel like I kind of turn it, take that and
I'm going to actually pull it
flesh
up
out.
right now because I want to go over it with you. Isn't it cool that you're on iTunes?
We are.
Yeah, man. I think that's cool. So I have Rock Live 2016. So I love this because you had Sanctuary on here.
Yeah, that's
Fly on Silver Wings, which is pretty badass.
Yeah.
Right. Chain of Fools, right? She does that great.
Yeah.
Stormy Monday, which is probably like you can't live in Bradenton and not play like Stormy Monday, right?
Yeah, and that song.
Rock is Love.
Yeah.
Great song.
Yeah.
Little Wing, which we talked about earlier. Happy. Is that I need a lover to keep me happy? Is that
it's a
different version?
No, it's
song?
it's an original song that Twink wrote for her kids when she was taken to Montessori school and they had no radio in the VW.
So she sang to them.
So she'd sing to them.
That's great.
And she wrote this song.
I've Got You Now. I've Got You No.
Yeah.
Respect. Everything's All Right. So there's 10 songs on that. They're all live. I love it. That's a great little thing.
Yeah.
Then you got the Freaks and Weirdos. Are You Ready? Which is a great opening track. Right?
Yeah. So that started with me musically. That's like I wrote.
So you're like you basically would come in and she would feel it.
I would.
Would you say that she's your muse or you're her muse?
Yeah, we both do. It's mutual. So I would come like I'm getting a sound check. And the guy goes play guitar, and I'm and she's grabbing her phone.
Do you think a lot of songs are developed like that, where maybe during a sound check somebody's just like,
oh yeah,
what the fuck did you just?
Yeah,
do?
we've written some. Sanctuary started out as. When we ran our own sound, Tony would say, "Okay, I want everyone to play and just chug on just chug an A note, dun dun dun, and he'd go out there and try to get a balance while he was playing. And I would like to try to get under his skin, so I'd never just play an A note. So I played that riff, the Sanctuary riff, and all of a sudden, then we started calling it before it was Sanctuary. It started developing into a song, and Twinkle would do what I call singing applesauce over it, just words or sounds and whatever before she found it. And then, so it became soundcheck song. And then, so it was soundcheck song. And then finally when she
So how cool was it when the first time you all as a band heard it together, done, finished? Do you remember that moment?
Yeah.
And you were like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like you just created art, man. Like a really good piece of art.
Yeah. It was very cool. And the way we did it was pretty cool too. That live record was, we sold tickets and had seats in the studio. So it was live, but they had a big room, and it was a tracking room, but it was pretty big, and we put folding chairs in there. We sold tickets to it. The tickets paid for the recording, and we played it live. We did 2 shows. We did back-to-back shows. So we did an early show and played a set, and then we played almost an identical set again. So they had 2 passes that they could draw from,
Because I came and saw you at McCurdy's. Mm-hmm. And that was a couple years ago, right? We all bought tickets. It was sold out. It was a Monday night, you know. So when they're not doing comedy, they're doing bands. And I guess you guys did the whole album.
Right.
And K-Love, who was one of my guests, and the other woman, Savage, what's her name? The other singer? I forgot her name. They were at McCurdy singing backups to Twinkle, which was brilliant.
Yeah, because they did it on the record too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were on the record, so they came in to sing their parts.
So you're not just a local guy playing up and down the Suncoast. You're recording. You're an original recording artist. I mean, you're making original songs. I mean, is there Twinkle said there's a lot of stuff in the can that you guys could still put albums out. Yeah, there is, and we're continue writing all the time. But do you like doing the covers, man? Like, is it fun for you? Yeah, but I think I enjoy playing. It's not lost on me that it's a privilege to do. You know what I mean? To be able to do and to and to play have a song that didn't exist that I wrote the music for. It didn't exist.
Then all of a sudden it's a song.
Are you proud of that? You proud of your songs, man? Like,
Yeah, but just it's there. I'm grateful more than anything else to have that something that came from the air, right? Nothing,
right?
And then all of a sudden it's something. All of a sudden we record it and we turn it into something. Hey, this is something, and then we play it at the shows, and we get to play our original music at the shows, and we have people request it.
Well, that's just it. A great point, because other guests have come on and we said, okay, at what point do you bring originals? Like when we're hired to do bars and festivals, we're basically hired to be a cover band.
Mm-hmm.
So I say to my friends who have original music, do you do the song and then say that was my original? Or do you say, hey, folks, we're going to stop and we're going to do an original song. Check it out. Like, how do you set it up? But you're different. But you're different, though, because now that you've been doing it, now you, like you said, your band has requests for it.
Yeah.
As opposed to other bands that maybe no one's ever heard it, they have to figure out a way to get it in there.
So sometimes if there's a story that goes along with the song, there's certain, Tony and Twinkle both, they love to talk. So if in the intro they say what the song is about, the song's about my dad, it's pretty evident that it's going to be original. You know what I mean?
Right.
So sometimes it's that. We don't always say that stop, make a thing about it. What we do is we play our original and see if people are dancing or if they're rocking out.
Which in your case, that's usually the case.
Yeah.
Only because people know your band, they've heard your band, they love your band.
Yeah.
But it's funny how you ever see when Tony's talking and then Twinkle steps on him. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then you ever see the look on Tony's face?
Yeah.
You can tell he's generally pissed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he has to laugh about it, even though it's like, I'm just talking. Like, please.
Oh yeah. I mean, they do it to each other all the time. I mean, he's just as frustrated as he is. He's just as guilty.
Let me tell you something though. I love Tony's sound. I love his tone. One of these days, when I come to see you guys, I want to get a thorough look at his gear and figure out what his tone is, because he's got great bass tone.
Yeah. Do
you help him with that? Like, being that you're the guitar guy and you understand pedals, do you sometimes help your other bandmates out with some of their stuff?
Oh yeah, all the time. I fix the broken stuff. You know what I mean? I kind of fix things for a living. You know what I mean?
I know you do wonderful guitar work, but you do amps too?
I don't do amps. I might change tubes or change speakers or something like that. But to get into amps, I don't do that. I farm that stuff out. I think I would do more damage than good as far as.
But when it comes to like setting up guitars, man, you're the best in the area. And then you got a nice workshop back there, bro.
Yeah. Well, I actually I went to school for it. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I went to
guitar. Talk about that. What school was that?
It was the Gallup School of Luthery, and it's in Big Rapids, Michigan. And I went there in 2005 and learned to build guitars. And I built 2 or 3 while I was there. I know I built 2.
So you built guitars from scratch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have.
You take apart Fenders and Gibsons, and you can rebuild those.
I don't. I'm not currently a builder, because a builder you need even more specialized tools. I have a bunch of specialized
tools. Like a
tools.
CNC router and all that shit.
Yeah, and molds. If you're building an acoustic guitar, you take a flat piece of wood, you bend it into a side. That's how they get the curve on the sides of a acoustic guitar. And you need a mold. Then you need a side bender. You need all these specialized tools, which probably would need a third more added to my shop in order to.
Are you looking for new customers for your shop, or are you full to the max? Like, should we announce how to contact you, or should we not even tell people because you're just overwhelmed? Because sometimes I come in there and I see, dozens of guitar cases, like people that are like, like you got a lot of work, man.
Yeah. I don't have a website. I don't have, I don't advertise at all. It's either you know me or know someone who knows me. I don't really. I think I have as much work as I want. You know what I mean? Not that I won't do somebody new. That if they come in and do it, but I like the non-advertising way because it's a little bit more organic. It's a little slower pace. For new customers to come in. They go around, they go to Guitar Center, and they get super disappointed with their setup, and they start asking people, do you know someone who could...
That's how I came to you.
Yeah.
So you do some really expensive stuff. Like, you've been presented some really high-end guitars.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and mandolins.
And there's a lot of high-end musicians that live around here. Like, there's a lot of celebrities, man, that you wouldn't know about that live and work around here, man. So, the elusive Brian Johnson. So I'm trying to get him on this show. By the way, man, I saw AC/DC in Tampa.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I had low expectations. I was blown away how good they were, dude.
Yeah.
They were so freaking good. And it was a stadium, and the sound was amazing. Go figure. And I think Brian's 77, and he was still killing it, man.
Yeah.
And Angus was 70.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't his voice; it was his hearing that was the problem, you know. And once he had a doctor say, "Hey, I could sort you out on the hearing," then.
Well, that's a great question. Do you wear inner ears?
It depends on the gig. Most of the time, I don't. And really the reason being is that I use a monitor. I'm also using mostly a modeler. I use a Fractal FM9.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. So, but the reason I like to have at least some air moving is because a lot of what I do in my solos and stuff involves like controlled feedback, and it's hard to do if you don't have any.
Most guitar players that I speak to do not wear inner ears.
Yeah.
They only wear them if they have to, like if you're doing like a Vegas thing or you're totally like it's mandatory. And but I guess to our earlier point about Brian, it's like I think it can lend for a longer career if you have some type of ear protection or some type of way that you can bring it down. You know what I'm saying? Like singers. I mean, I don't think Twinkle uses ears, but singers should always have ears. I don't know why a singer would not have ears.
Yeah, she has a really. I think it's because it's not that she got molds and she got a really nice set of in-ears, but I think it's just the fact that the way she moves.
I know it's a preference. I get it.
You know, the way she moves, she just knocks them out.
But so there could be times when you guys might be a little too loud.
Yeah.
And then she's like, holy fuck, I can't hear myself.
Yeah.
Turn it down.
Yeah.
Like I've gotten yelled at in my previous singers because in certain rooms, it would be so loud that she couldn't really properly hear herself through the monitor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you turn it up and then all of a sudden you start getting feedback.
Yeah. That could be a problem. But I'm not really. All I want to do is I have my rhythm sound and I just need to be able to hear to see if I'm in key. Yeah, that make sure.
So you're cognizant of your stage volume.
Yeah, very. And so monitors is one of those things that the more that's in there, the smaller they are, the smaller they sound. It's not the bigger. So in my monitors, all I need is my guitar and the vocals. That's all I need.
You don't need drums because you're hearing that right behind you.
Don't need them.
You don't hear bass because you're probably feeling it, right?
Because the bass develops where I am. You know, he needs it because the bass waves are big, right? They go like that. So when you're standing next to the cabinet, you're not really hearing it. The first row really hears it. You know what I mean? Because now the bass the wave has had a chance to develop. So I don't need bass.
But are you using an amp on stage or are you just using your monitor?
Just monitor.
And you're coming out of the front of the house?
In front of house.
Okay. And do you have a preamp into the monitor? Is you going pre into the monitor?
Nope. Straight from the Fractal into the monitor.
Okay.
Or I go straight from the Fractal to front of house. And then front of house I have my monitor send from the front of house. So then I can put whatever I want and take out whatever I don't want.
So when you do a festival, are you using the amplifier that's provided on stage?
No, the only thing I do on most festivals is most of the ones, the PAs, most of the guys are using those QSE K12s.
Yeah.
And that's a 2 input, right? So I try to get the sound person to give me a really good hot monitor for guitar, and if they don't, then sometimes I'll have a extra 1/4 inch jack, and I have the FM9 has 3 separate outputs, and I'll just go out of output 2 directly into the monitor. So I have.
So you could control that part of the monitor. Whereas, okay, I'm going to talk about 2 sound people that are awesome. Ray from Paragon is fantastic. She's
great. She has us dialed in and saved.
Same with us, man. And then we love Twisted Fork. You know, there's an A team and a B team with they're both excellent. But,
both great. Yeah.
When we're doing the A team and we're dealing with Nate.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Fantastic.
Dude, we sound like the freaking Who.
We heard. I came in and Nate was playing a recorded version of one of our originals that we haven't recorded yet. It's called Love.
So he took it off the live show.
He took it off the show, right? And I heard it, and I was like, oh my God! I mean, we always loved him, and you know, he's one of those ones that's great. He knows about modelers. He knows that you kind of run them flat, And, you know, you don't have to, a lot of sound guys will go, oh, it's a guitar amp. Let me pull this and, you know, boost this a little bit. And they're already shaping it before they heard it because this is what guitar amps, you know, cabinets need, right? To sound good in the mix. And they do that. Well, I already have done that inside. You know what I mean? I've already done all that shaping. So a sound man could basically take me and run me flat. Completely flat. You don't have to pull down 150. I've already got, you know, 150 and below out, you know, and you don't have to pull out, you know, 8K and above because I already have that.
Gotcha.
You know, and probably 6K is.
Are you wireless?
I am wireless.
And do you like to be wireless? Because some guitar players love to be plugged in, and they have a reason for it.
Yeah. I do. I like to be wireless simply because. I mean, I've stepped on my cord many a time and had to have, you know, to have two cords, and I just chomped this one cord.
We could talk about funny stories. I recently pulled my own cord out because I stepped on it. I didn't have it tucked in right, you know, and I stepped on it and I ripped it out in the middle of the song.
Yeah,
you know, it's embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
I knocked over my microphone.
Oh yeah.
Smash.
Well, and the other thing too is like, so I have a tendency to take Twink's here. I'm usually right to her left.
Yeah, stay right.
Right. But I take my solos in between us, right in that space in between us. It was just the way I was trained. You hang your toes off the front of the stage when you do your solo.
Yeah,
right.
People want to see that.
Right. So
now you're coming through her monitor, right? Because you just left your monitor to go over there.
Right. So, but I could still hear it a little bit. And sometimes she has me in, you know, she wants to hear her and a little bit of guitar. That's really all she wants in her monitor. So she didn't even have the rest of the backup vocals. It's her vocal and a little bit of my guitar. So she knows where, because I start 80% of the songs. And like you were talking about Gimme Shelter, well, that started out, the beginning of Gimme Shelter started out with just something that when Tony was, I wrote this intro to Gimme Shelter before it kicks in. So, which may lead to another song, or it may be that someday we'll cover Gimme Shelter, you know, and use that on our version of Gimme Shelter. So, but when I'm chorded, I'm pointing, and if I'm walking up the front stage and I got my chord and she happens to walk behind me and then I'm done the solo and I walk back and then she walks across me and now we're, you know.
That happens.
Yeah, so that happens. I don't necessarily think that I love the sound of wireless, although some of the really good ones you can pick like, oh, I like the sound of a 20-foot cord. And
do you always make sure you have fresh batteries every show, or do you sometimes say, let me get another life out of these batteries, and you watch your thing go down? Like sometimes I'll put a fresh battery in, but then I'll also see when I don't, it comes down. Now I'm in the third, so I'm like, fuck, I better switch it because it's not going to end. I'm not going to be able to keep it.
I do that with my ears, but my wireless is rechargeable.
Oh.
So I use the Shure wireless that's rechargeable. And
we charge it as it's going, you mean?
No, it's you charge them. I mean, they have a.
And how long does it last?
7 hours.
Oh, that's more than enough.
7 hours of playtime, yeah. So and I can, you know, and typically I end up using I have 2 packs. So I have a pack for my backup guitar, and they're both tied to the same receiver. You know, so you use one at a time, and it connects. And then when you turn that one on, if you turn the other one on, it connects to the receiver.
How often do you break a string on stage?
If I try to go any more than 2 shows without changing strings, I'll break a string. If we have one show and I don't have another show for 2 weeks, and even though I wipe my strings down and I don't change strings, the fact that those strings have been sitting on that guitar for 2 weeks, pretty good chance I'm going to break a string. And it's almost always a D string. And then for some reason, I think it's a pretty high tension string. And I think where my pick hits, it's the flattest.
Or maybe you're more aggressive there.
It's blunt force trauma. There's less of an angle. So you start out with your high E like this, and then you start working your way up flat on D, and then and then as you get to A and E, you start curving the other way. So
what strings do you like to use?
I'm not particular about, I'm not precious about any string. I just am precious about changing them often. So I love, basically, there aren't really any bad strings. I don't use coated strings because it's not it's not corrosion that gets me. It's that broken string, and I'll break the D string on an elixir as much as I'll break a D string on a Diodario set of Diodario
Right, so it
strings.
doesn't matter, yeah.
So it doesn't matter, and it's
It's the tension, probably, right?
Yeah, it's the tension. It's not, and it's at that point.
Do you
it's
string
not
your guitar differently than other guys? Or are you pretty standard on how you set up your guitar?
Well, yeah. I mean, different than some. I have a consistent height all the way across. So it's if you take I measure at the 15th fret. So if you put a capo on the first fret to make sure the nut is not contributing to your reading, you can get a consistent reading, and it's basically straight across 2/32 on all the strings. So it's not too low. And I always have 4/1000 relief in my neck. It's or maybe even a little bit more, but it's never flat. And that's because the strings slip out from under my fingers. I feel if it's too straight.
What percentage of your songs are straight tuning versus like perhaps drop D or half step down?
We have, let's see,
And do you switch out guitars, or do you just step on a pedal and you can drop down?
I tune. So I have my guitars are almost always have a whammy bar. I have them set up for down only, so there's no pullback. They only go down. And then I have enough springs and tension on that I can detune to drop D, and the bar doesn't move. The whole guitar doesn't go out of tune because of that. You know what I mean? I can do that. And so that's
so that's probably easy to go drop D there.
Easy drop D.
So you could probably do it while the song is even starting, knowing that you have a few seconds to get it into.
Yeah.
What about when when you're half step down across the board?
So we are a half step down.
Oh, you're already tuned to half step down.
We are. So everything, we learn all the songs in standard and we play them a half step down.
Yeah, that's smart.
You know what I mean? And that avoids all the confusion, because it can be confusing. You get a song like we do the Great White song, and
it's all in flats to begin with, and then
it was in F sharp, right? And and I initially learned it in G instead of F sharp, and then all of a sudden, when I'm playing it in G, which is logical to me that there's not very many rock and roll bands that will, if they don't tune flat like Van Halen, they don't, if they don't already, and Jimi Hendrix, then if you see something in F sharp, chances are it's probably in G. You know what I mean? Because it's just weird keys to solo in, and things like that.
How would you describe your pitch? I mean, would you say that you have perfect pitch in the sense that you can hear, you understand if I say sing a D or play a D, like what a D sounds like. Like for an example, a lot of the songs that I sing backups on are in D or E flat. And I know how to go there now without even thinking about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think I have somewhat relative pitch. Do not have perfect pitch. The notes that I sing, I figure out. I figure out what the notes they are. And I practice those notes a lot. And that's how I remember.
So how often do you sing?
I only sing background. I only sing backup, but I sing a lot.
Could you sing lead if you had to?
I used to in Dyersburg. I sang a song. I sang, Delbert McClinton tune, "Standing on Shaky Ground." Actually, it's a Temptations song that Delbert McClinton covered. "Standing on Shaky Ground." And I sang that, and actually, that's actually got quite a number of requests. If I didn't, it's like I'm like Benny. Benny only sings one song now in this set. I don't sing any.
You actually give your drummer a microphone?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We never give our drummers microphones. That's dangerous, because then they can start telling jokes and they start going off the train. They're like, just keep it down back there, right? That's what I tell them.
It's funny is he does. He doesn't. If he had his rathers, he probably wouldn't sing, and he probably wouldn't have a microphone. But when he does sing, he holds the microphone and sings and plays the drums with one hand. So that's really...
He likes to play around back there. I see him throwing stuff around.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
my guy does that too sometimes. All right, well, we're getting toward the end of the program.
Okay.
So what's in the near future for Twinkle and Rock Soul Radio? Any exciting news? Any big shows? Anything different? I know we're in the summer months now, so things slow down considerably. But then we're going to get back into season. And I'm already starting to book the band for 2026, believe it or not.
Well, yeah, I believe it. We're... with Tony's injury.
We want to talk about that quickly?
Yeah, we can. Sure.
So Tony has an injury where unfortunately he can't play the bass.
Yeah, he's got
It's sad because he's such a wonderful bass player.
So he's got some bulging disc in his spine in 3 spots, and he has to get the disc replaced in it. So
That's horrible.
He's got some disc coming up, some surgery coming up. And
How did that happen? Does he know how it happened? Like jumping off of freaking speakers or something?
No, I think it was. It could. Some of it is, just occurred over a lifetime of playing, and then some of it, and I think it may have been exacerbated by a chiropractic adjustment, and then that kind of just went over the edge because it was on the way home from a chiropractor that he started losing it. Yeah. So what's our plan is for him to have his surgery, him to rehab, to get back to 100%, and then hopefully sometime at the beginning of the year, we actually would like to go in and start recording another record.
Nice.
Yeah. So that would be the main thing that I'm looking forward, because that's the main thing that probably has kept me in music. When
writing and recording.
Yeah, and somehow even at this age, you're still able to secure financing and to actually get it done. Figure out what we need and to get it done, and to move forward. So that really is the driving thing for me. Because I've done that other stuff. So, you asked me if I enjoyed playing cover shoes, and I do, and I don't take it for granted. But I probably would play less if it wasn't original music. At least sprinkled in there. And to be able to go do a night of original music that's really awesome. You know what's
funny about you, man? You've actually, even though you play covers and you play them really, really well, you've developed your own sound. Like there's a certain sound. There's a Lenny sound. Like Mark Borgmeier has his own sound.
Right. Yeah.
And when I can close my eyes and say that's Borgie, you can tell. And I think the same thing with you.
Yeah. I think it might be.
You're more on the clean side. If you had to pick a direction, you're more clean. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's approach. And, the other thing too is like, I'm not so, technical. I'm more, I'm not so chop oriented. I'm more song oriented. Like, so I don't want to blow chops on every song, just because I can. I was like, I like to think of like, what does the song require?
So you serve the song.
Serve the song, absolutely.
Right.
That's 100%. And some of it needs a little, it's asking for some heat, so you got to bring some heat to it,
But that's what makes Twinkle special, is that now you're getting into Twinkle territory, because now you're bringing the heat and you're experimenting a little bit and you're embellishing on a few things.
Yeah.
And then the mashups start happening, right?
Yeah.
And the medleys start coming, the intros.
Yeah.
So that's your thing. That's what you guys are known for that.
Yeah. And that's and I like to do that. It's just stuff that we do. So like Give Me Shelter, it started with a vamp, a C sharp vamp, on the bass. And then I just started kind of noodling over that and found something that's pretty cool. And then Twig liked it. She started singing along with this thing that I wrote. And then it became an intro. Like, this is our intro. And so we have a set. Now it's a set thing. It's a set pattern where I was just kind of like being ethereal, a little bit ethereal, before I started into the regular rhythm of Give Me Shelter. You know what I mean?
Are you is your set list printed out on the floor? Or,
No,
or do you have to remember, like she'll say, let's do these 5, and then you have to remember the order?
No, she writes them out.
So she'll put them down.
She'll write about.
So like, do you have to peek at her list and see what am I doing?
She'll write everyone a list.
Oh, so there's a list on the ground.
Yeah, she makes everyone a list. Yeah,
because I can't operate without a set list, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm not that smart that I can remember every freaking song.
So here's what happens too. If you start reusing set lists, you know what I mean? And what I like is a master list. These is how they say it is our book. This is our book. If there was an actual book of written music, of sheet music that you were reading.
Right. So let's say there's 200 cover songs there.
Right. So here's a book. Here's a master list of the songs. From there, if I had that to look at, I could start thinking of the next song like Oh, okay.
So maybe you'll play the song, and then they'll realize what you're doing, and then they'll play that song.
Yeah,
So
well-
like you could you could deviate from the set list.
if I had a master list.
See, Larry does it by accident. Larry will deviate because he forgets the next song. So now we're forced to play that song.
Yeah, Tony does it too because he can't read the song. He can't read it without his glasses.
Yeah, she's got to make them in bigger print. That's what I do for Larry. I make them bigger now.
Yeah. So what I have is most of the sound companies we work with, they let me do my own monitor mix. So I have an iPad, and so my set list goes underneath the iPad to like hanging out from underneath the iPad. So I don't have to look that far. I can look right over here.
That's what I do. I could toggle between screens.
Oh yeah. So, and I have an app called Setlist that is, that shows a master list of, of the songs. But if I have to go between screens of me mixing my monitor, whether I went up, down a little bit or.
Well, the great thing about working your own monitor is that once you have it, you can just leave it. You don't have to mess with it during the show.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So usually I only need that for the, first 4 songs, and it's pretty much dialed in, by the 4th song, because like the first couple songs may not have keys, and I might realize that I can't hear them and I need a little bit.
I know.
But mostly it's like, I don't want anything. I just want my guitar and the vocals. So I can just hear a little bit of a blend. And my vocal is even though it's my monitor, my vocal is the lowest volume in my monitor because I want to hear everyone else and to make sure I'm singing on key. Like I said, I don't have perfect pitch.
Okay. Well, good deal. All right, Lenny. Well, thanks for coming in.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
I want all of our listeners and viewers, I'm sure this is going to be a big episode. A lot of people are going to want to hear this one. But if they haven't seen or heard Twinkle and Rock Soul Radio, they need to catch you guys live. I'm assuming everything's either on the Facebook page or the website.
Yeah.
So they can learn about you guys and figure out the next show.
Yeah. So twinkleandrocksoulradio.com. Probably .net, .org. We've got a number of them. And on the website is an events tab that takes you over to our Reverb Nation page.
You're one of the few guys that are still using Reverb Nation.
Yeah.
Because what I'm doing now is I'm using Go Tonight, and it automatically populates into my new website. So whatever I put in Go Tonight automatically shows up there. But same thing with Reverb. You can go to Reverb Nation and it'll or you just take people there like a link that takes you there.
Yeah. It's a link that takes you there from our website, and I mean that's what I use to figure out where I'm playing. I go
like, holy shit, I got to be in fucking Tampa tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys play Tampa all the way down to Naples. I mean, you guys are truly a Suncoast band. You guys do travel.
We do travel. Yeah,
Are you going out of state at all anytime soon? Or
I don't know. Right now I think recording is the main goal. And when you start, like when we went to Europe, we went to Europe a few years ago, 7 years ago. Golly, almost 8 years ago. When we did that, that took our complete focus, and we didn't record for like 2 years because of that. And so now we're looking to record. So I don't know. We have people that can book us throughout the state, right? But we don't have anyone that can book us. We have one friend in Colorado that's dying to have us come out and play his 420 festival, and it's 4200 festival. He's 4200 feet up, so it's a 4200 festival, yeah. And so he wants us to do that. But in order to do that, it's financially not feasible for us just to go do that show. So we'd have to do a run of shows,
of course.
But you got to have someone who can put you someplace in the middle there, And so, I guess the dream would be to get on a tour, supporting somebody. You know what I mean? Short tour, like 4 weeks.
Especially with this new material.
Yeah.
Because isn't the best part about making new original music is then to go out and tour it and see people's reactions to it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we all do. That's the essence of rock and roll, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. That's the fun part. Right?
So you're still having fun after all these years?
Still having fun, yeah.
All right, Lenny. Well, listen, thanks for coming in, man.
Thank you for having me, man.
Great interview. And people can check this episode out. They can comment. They can put comments on.
Cool.
And we'll see it at a future Twinkle and Rock Soul radio show.
All right, great.
Thanks.
Thanks.